Why, thank you. Before we actually get going, I want to take just a minute or two and talk to you about the Core Champion program. This ethics session helps you to comply with the requirement for the ethics competency for the for the Core Champion program. There are 13 competencies under 3 modules. The vision module has 3 of them. The principle module has 2 of them, and then the practice module has 8 competencies, of which ethics is one of those 8. So the purpose of the core program is to strengthen your knowledge of court management principles and practices, to increase your exposure to the core, and then also to celebrate your attendance at various events like this that will help you gain the competencies for all the 13 competencies. And then we celebrate it through the presentation and awarding of certificates in each one of the competencies in each one of the modules. So to start the program, you come to a session. You're at a session, so you've already started. All you have to do then after the session is complete a structured response form for the session that you attended. You can do that by going on to, if I'm going to get this right, nacomcore.org, or to email core@nacomnet.org, and you can get the structured question that you need to respond to, and those responses will be, pardon? Oh, it's also in the app, sorry. And then you finish the response. It will be reviewed by, I suppose, members of the core committee, and then you're given an award approval by email. There are 5 different types of certificates that are given out. The Core Explorer, you fulfill the requirement for 1 competency in each of the modules. Then there's the Principal Specialist, where you complete all the principal competencies, the practice module, the vision module, and then finally, when you complete all 13 competencies, you can apply to become a core champion. To become a core champion, you have to make a separate application, and then you have to write an article about probably 1 or more of the competencies, which then become eligible for being published in either the Court Express or the Court Manager. So you can become a published author. And then finally, you will be officially recognized publicly at the annual conference. So if you're thinking about joining, I encourage you to start your journey down the core championship path. And if you're already well on your way there, congratulations and carry on. So with that, now I'm going to turn it over to Carl for the
Thank you.
Session of the
Thanks,
first frame
Peter.
of the session.
I got to stop walking in front of the lens. Let me cover 2 things before we get started. First of all, let me talk a little bit about mechanics. As Peter mentioned, this is a very interactive session. We move around a lot. My apologies to the cameraman who's got to try to follow us through all this. We're live streamed and we're recorded, as many of you know. So we will do our best to make sure everybody has a mic, or if you just have a short phrase, we'll repeat it. For all of you on live stream, thank you for joining us that way, and we will do our best to keep you in mind and try to make sure that what goes on in this room is heard. But given the nature of the presentation, sometimes that gets really difficult. And if you're in the back row and you think we don't know what we're talking about, we're washed up, and you want to say, no, you don't know what you're talking about, feel free, and we'll repeat it, and we'll try to be as inclusive as we can to the live stream people. We'll be passing mics around a lot, and we hope this will be really energetic and really active. So thank you for being here. Thank you for the patience with all those mechanics as we try to get through this. Beyond the mechanics, though, let's talk just a few minutes about why are we here. One is public trust and confidence. That's a theme that we all hear all the time, and we pay great attention to that. But, we should all be aware of, we worry about and we we aspire to instilling and giving the public the confidence that their cases are going to be handled fairly and impartially, that they can trust us with our ethics. But we also have an obligation, of course, to reflect that expectation and that aspiration in our own organizational culture and our relationships with each other, and in our succession planning, in our mentoring, in our staff development, in our selection, in our recruitment, and our retention. We should also reflect and demonstrate those principles of fairness and impartiality and even-handed treatment and honesty and truth, and all those principles that we aspire to in the disposition of the public's cases, and all those principles that the judges aspire to. Likewise, we should aspire to those principles in our own organizations and relationships. And so that's why we think it's worthwhile to have these discussions about our own ethical standards and expectations. We're going to talk about relationships in this session. The first one will be relationships between coworkers, relationships between court management and the staff we develop, how we select. We'll talk about relationships between supervisors and coworkers. We'll talk about relationships between the expectations we have for each other now and the expectations we had sometime in the past. And let me make one qualification. I see Credell's here in the audience. Thank you for coming. For those of you who did Credell's session this morning on, from my perspective, recommendations on a highly structured, very analytical, very objective, very detailed selection process, Credell, if you have a heart attack and we need to get CPR, we'll work it out for you. We'll take care of you if you're in distress back there, because we're going to take a very practical approach too. Let me finish one more thing. Sometimes we'll get comments and feedback that say, okay, so yeah, we talked about these complex ethical issues for a while, and we all debated them around, and none of us got the right answer, and yeah, it feels good for the moment, and then we all leave, and nobody has the right answer. There's no clarity here. Well, I think we have two objectives. First of all, when these situations arise for each one of us, and they almost certainly will, and they almost probably for most of us already have, I think it serves a really good, worthwhile purpose for us to walk through this. Yeah, you might not get the right answer. Yeah, each jurisdiction is going to be different. Legal culture is different. Organizational culture is different. Judges' expectations, org charts are different. We get that. But I think it's really helpful and worthwhile for all of us collectively to talk through this and walk through these issues and to think of these issues. So when they do land on our desks, we've at least thought this through. And here's one other thing. We very seldom get this opportunity to collectively get together like this and communicate with each other, to share our perspectives, to share our different organizational cultures and expectations and mindsets and the individuality of our own jurisdictions. And so I think we'd like to take this rare opportunity when we talk through these really difficult ethical scenarios, whether it's relationships or whatever the issues happen to be at the time. It's a great opportunity to share with each other and to take advantage of each other's perspectives and experience and different orientations from back home at our home courts. So thank you for coming, and hopefully we'll use your time well, and you'll find this an engaging, worthwhile session.
Okay. So you are certainly invited to take a look at the NACA Model Code of Conduct for Court Professionals. The Ethics Committee is actually doing a rewrite of them as we speak, as Courtney is the chair of the Ethics Committee. But for this session, we thought we would suggest 3 specific canons that you can take a look at and keep in the back of your mind as you watch the scenarios unfold. So the first canon is Canon 1.2, avoiding impropriety. A court professional avoids both impropriety and the appearance of impropriety. This includes avoiding improper influences from business, family, position, party, person, as well as avoiding activities that would impugn the dignity of the court. One of the 2 questions that always comes up is, who decides what the appearance of impropriety is? Because that's a different criteria from actual impropriety. So keep that in mind. Secondly, who decides what is actually impugning the dignity of the court? So think of that as we walk through the scenarios. The second canon, independent judgment. A court professional avoids relationships that would impair one's impartiality, independent judgment. What kind of a relationship are we talking about? What degree do you have to get to? And then the third canon that we picked out for your review, personal relationships. A court professional recruits, selects, and advances personnel based on demonstrated knowledge, skills, and abilities, and bona fide work-related factors, not on favoritism. Now, in this day and age, when a lot of you are probably having trouble finding good talent to fulfill your court positions, I keep hearing over and over again, there are a lot of folks that are really struggling to find folks to work in the courts. When does proactive outreach to find new talent end up crossing the line into favoritism? So with that, we're going to start into the first of the three scenarios that we'll be talking about, and I'll have Carl introduce the Ethical Gonzo Acting Company.
All right, let's see if I can do this introduction. First, we should thank Samantha Wallace and Erica Schmidt, who may or may not be listening by live stream. I don't think they're here in person.
I gotta get out of your way.
NACM has an ethics subcommittee, and it's a very active, really interesting, engaged committee, and they're part of it. And we walk through a scenario, or each member does a little PowerPoint show, and we talk through those issues. Credell did a really great one, as I recall. Samantha Wallace and Erica Schmidt did one that provided the material for these three scenarios, and so we want to give them a thanks. Oh, yeah, of course, yes. So, I mean, you already know, it's a great committee. So if anybody wants to jump into a committee that's really good, I would make a plug for the ethics subcommittee. Thank you. Now, here, I'll do the introductions. And Katie Hemphill is Megan. Megan is an overachiever. Megan ran for student council. She was in Model United Nations. After she graduated from high school, she married a guy who is now a police officer lieutenant, and he was a decorated Marine before they got married. They live in a really nice 3-bedroom condo on the beach. Courtney Whiteside is Mabel. These two have been friends since grade school. Their grade school sat kids in order by alphabet by first name. And so they sat together for years and years, good friends for years. But Mabel is not going to set the world on fire. She married a guy named Miles. Miles drives Uber. His Uber car is a 2006 Chevy Squirt. And they live in a 1-bedroom apartment.
We like to be together.
There you go. All right. So that's Mabel. Jeff Chappell is Cole Huntington. He is the court executive for a large municipal and circuit court. Cole is having a stressful time at home lately, and he'll talk a little bit more about that. He tends to be very formal, very uptight, but he's also interested in staff development. Then we've got Joe Johnson, David Engel, and Patricia Seguin. They're our Greek chorus. They're our panel of management experts that work in this court and will share their observations about the dynamics that we're about to discuss in these scenarios. So, Megan and Mabel, do you want to take it away?
Megan has always been the hard charger. She's aced tests and ran for student council. I'm not one for the limelight.
Every Christmas, Mabel's family and ours get together for dinner at Outback Steakhouse because that's all she can afford. While we are there, I run into Cole Huntington, the executive officer for the Metropolitan Circuit and Municipal Courts.
Megan has always impressed me with her smarts and initiative. She babysat for my family, corralling all 4 boys when Loretta and I got divorced.
Hi, Mr. Huntington. This is my friend Mabel.
Megan, call me tomorrow. I'd like to think about working for the circuit court.
Oh my gosh, thank you. You know me, I'm always up for an adventure. I'd love to work for you.
Like most courts, we struggle to find good talent. When I see someone I think has the potential, I don't stand on procedure. I hire them.
3 weeks later, Megan tells Mabel about a job opening at the court. Mabel gets hired. They're back together again.
Hot dogs. The pay is barely above what we made at Amazon, but my whole family has insurance now.
I often drop by the jury office to chat with Megan. After only about 2 months on the job, she suggested merging the jury summonses and the initial questionnaire. Megan asked for jurors' cell phone numbers so the court can wave folks off when the trials settle at the last minute. Plus, she shares with me what the line staff are talking about during the break time. I like her spunk, and she is a source of intel in the office.
Mr. Huntington gets divorced. Then he brings this girl to work for the court.
You know, she used to babysit for him.
You know, she takes notes at lunch and rats people out to Mr. Cole. But we sure do love her spunk.
So then the first electronic question, vote. Did Megan inappropriately benefit from her personal relationship with Cole Huntington getting that job? Your options are yes, job selections should be only based on objective merit. Or 2, no, Cole was simply reaching out to an excellent potential employee and pulling her in. So what do we got? What? It's changed. There we go.
There we go.
There we go. I love technology. Can I grab your... So, job selection should only be based on objective merit, 33 to 16. Okay. 18, 19?
Huh.
Just about twice as many. Just going to ask, can somebody be brave enough to raise their hand and ask why you voted that Cole was simply reaching out to a potential employee? Anybody, any brave soul?
Stacy.
Oh, okay.
I think that just from her drive and the things that he was saying, that if you looked at it, she would be a good potential candidate because he knew her outside of that. I didn't necessarily believe that that was an influence because he didn't start out that way. Mm-hmm. So
Yeah.
that's why.
Okay. But did I miss something? Let me ask you a follow-up question, Stacy, though, about that. Is that even if, and we're going to assume that Cole had the best of intentions, but pulling somebody out of Outback Steakhouse and having them come over to the court, does that not put a thumb on the selection process? If you're at HR and you know that the court executive recruited this person, I mean, maybe you still have some sort of an option to say that she's not qualified, but it's not going to be like, oh, I don't know, I don't feel all that great about that person. It's got to be, oh no, there are 3 felonies on her record, something like that.
Okay. I don't know how I feel about you saying the Outback Steakhouse. I mean, like, would it be different if it was another restaurant? I'm not sure.
Okay, Chili's.
But it is, I mean, in context of that, it could be challenging. But we don't know all the other restaurants that he went to that he may have talked to somebody. So to be fair, I don't think that we can just say that's the only one he went to. So, but it could be dicey, quite honest. And I think Mabel had a little something going on, but he just wasn't paying attention.
Just out of idle curiosity, Cole, do you like cruise the restaurant circuit? Looking for good talent?
I got 4 boys. I can't afford that.
I would say, to be fair, we don't know the whole process. So what's the names? Megan could have gone through the hiring process like everybody else, like all the rest of the candidates. So we left that part out. You left that part out. So if she went through that whole process and still became the candidate, then it may be fair. Just because they went to Outback doesn't mean that she wasn't still a good candidate if they went through the right hiring process.
That's not what happened. I was there.
I think we have a comment over here, Peter.
I would say that you prefaced it with that she was already a go-getter. So my assumption would be that she had already excelled in multiple other areas in her life also. She wasn't just, kind of accepting the
Not
standard.
a passive candidate.
No, yes, there was a relationship there, but what was her merits outside of that relationship? And should that relationship alone disqualify her from being able to apply for the position?
Okay. Sure. There we go.
Especially in the state we are in right now as an economy, right? It's hard to get, proficient candidates for that job, right? If you know there's someone that has the qualification, has the status, has the track record of doing the work that that they can perform for you, right? Why miss out on a good candidate, right? Obviously, when you do bring them in, right, you don't hire them at Outback, right? But you do bring you do bring them in, and they go through a proper process, right? Background check, all that kind of stuff to make sure they are qualified on other ends, right? And then that's how I think it's sufficient to hire them without doing that big merit process.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point because, in Crudell's presentation, he urged us to be really careful about the way I think of it is outside information about how good a candidate might be for associations outside the job itself necessarily. Even though you and I might have a different perspective, I think that's exactly right. You got to be really careful about that. But let me tell 30 seconds of story,
Sure.
and you don't want to hear my stories, but I'll do this really quickly just to illustrate the question. My wife and I bought a couch. We went to there's a gigantic furniture warehouse in Sioux Falls. It's huge. 747 could take off. It's regional upper Midwest furniture distribution. And I watched an energetic, friendly, funny guy with a forklift retrieve a coffee table from bay number 247, and he told his coworker, I remember where that one is. It's in 247, and it's underneath a Chippendale dresser. And he went and got it, and he retrieved it. And I'm standing there thinking to myself, that's the kind of funny, friendly, energetic guy with a good memory that I'd love to work at the court. Or you watch somebody's flight get canceled, and you watch a gate agent get hammered, and she's graceful or he's graceful and nice and handles the public well, and I think that's the kind of person I want at the court. Or I went to a Perkins. Every Sunday morning, a group of World War II vets, 100 years old, sits at that table, and there's a server who remembers every one of their names and remembers how they take their coffee, and even though they're really busy, she serves them incredibly well, and I think that's the kind of person I want. Now, all of those examples are, just as you said, outside influences, outside knowledge. But when we have a market like we do now, and we want to grab people, we want to attract people that are outside our typical, we talk about inclusion and recruitment and attraction. It's really hard for me to think, we don't want to do that, because that could be kind of dangerous or not fair or not impartial. It's kind of partial. I like that one. So apply for court, here's my card, kind of thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Go ahead.
Two things, I guess. One little thing is, I guess on some level, if it's done properly, it must be kind of okay, because a lot of courts, including ours, are giving incentives to employees who are referring other people to apply,
Yes.
So,
Thank
but
you.
the bigger,
Yes.
the bigger thing though that I feel like has been totally left out is it depends on who was in the applicant pool, because if there were 5 other people in that applicant pool who had 10 or 15 years of who just moved to your county, who all worked in various courts around the country and have relevant experience, then that's probably, and they interviewed well, that's probably a shiesty hire, because the applicant pool had other applicants in it that were better qualified. So like the person you hire in January of 2023 and the person you hire in January 2024 is different depending on how many people are in that applicant pool.
Yeah, and we have to be mindful of time, but I think you put your finger on such a good point, because those incentive programs, in other words, it establishes in sort of our hiring and recruiting structure that it's okay for coworkers to do those personal referrals, but is it okay for Cole to do it, given his position in the org chart? And it also leads to the question of, if I, since I'm the top box in the org chart, can I ever make a referral and not influence the outcome?
Mm-hmm. Okay, got one behind you, and then.
And I always look at it as an executive in the court. If you're putting your thumb on the scale, I'm sorry, that skews the entire process. If you just tell you, hey, here's an application, put your name in, and then the process runs its course, that's a huge difference and impacts the ethical evaluation of how that process works. Here, if Cole just said, hey, you'd be really good at this, why don't you apply? That's different than saying, hey, Megan, I'm appointing you as our new jury supervisor.
Mm-hmm.
And you can always put a really quick, caveat. It's like, I'm really glad I want you to come and apply, but I can't guarantee you that's going to be anything. If you say that out loud, then you're kind of covered.
Right. And in fact, and that's exactly what, to the furniture guy, the server, and the gate ticket agent, that's exactly what I did. I said, well, here's my card. We have vacancies at court. We don't tell the supervisors who to hire, but I'll at least get you an interview. Because, I mean, if they'll do me that courtesy, but that's as far as it goes. But then it leads back to the question of, even though I reassure the supervisors 100 times, but you pick who you want, sometimes I wonder, just like if the presiding judge, if we're hiring a higher level position, the presiding judge tells me, oh, that'd be a really good candidate. That candidate's going to get consideration, whether she tries to disclaim that or not. So, yeah, it's a tough area.
Yeah, Cheryl's got one.
Yeah, I think the difference in this scenario is that there wasn't a job recruitment process. And we have a real example of this that happened in our court, where a judicial officer offered the job of a JA to somebody before the recruitment was even posted. And so then no one applied for the job. I mean, everyone in the courthouse knew who was going to get the job before it was ever even posted. And so you limit who your applicants are, you limit who your talent is, you limit what kind of diversity you get. If you are singular focused only on the people that you draw in.
Yeah. Okay. Can I sneak over here? Thanks.
I want to say, I don't think anything is wrong with making a referral or letting someone know that there's a vacancy, particularly if you have a really strong process of interviewing and making decisions. In our court, we can't even promote. You have to interview for every position. And I've had, staff come to me when they see, or people in other departments see there's a vacancy and we're friends and they want to know. And I actually had a friend that asked. He interviewed terribly, so he didn't get the job. So I did think he was good for us. I said, sure, apply. But there are other factors that you may not be aware of. If you have not seen this person actually working, if you have not supervised them or been on a job with them, you may be seeing their exterior and all the things that they've accomplished, but there could be other reasons why they may not be a good fit. So that whole process of interviewing and making that decision on who should get the job would then help you really clearly see if this person's a good fit. So I think referring is okay. As long as you actually have a recruitment process. This is not a case where a supervisor can just make a selection. We have to have a panel of 3, and we have to have at least 3 applicants to even begin pursuing the process. So we can't get around that.
Yeah. Okay. As is usually the case, we have a series of discussion questions in case we end up with crickets on the vote. We have not done that, so we're probably going to end up having to bypass the discussion questions. Does Cole trying to mentor Megan, give the appearance of impropriety, and did Coles act inappropriately by offering Megan a job outside the normal process, which we've already discussed. So I think we're going to have to move on to the second scenario.
Yeah, one thing though, quickly before we move on.
Okay.
When we think this through about referrals, I'll bet you those, just something to keep in mind. Those of us here in the room, we may have gotten our first job cold. In other words, you hop on some internet site and you apply for a court job because you got to pay the rent and you get it. I'll bet you most of us in this room climbed that ladder, and in part we're here because we were given opportunities by somebody who recognized our talent, that it wasn't cold. In other words, somebody just like Cole sort of reached out and kind of chose us, mentored us, developed us, took an interest in us in particular. And so when we say, well, yeah, it should just be neutral and objective, I'll bet you most of us, somebody invested in us. And so we've got to keep that in mind when we think about these questions. Sorry, Peter. Okay.
We didn't need talent. We had a sparkling personality.
No, there you go.
There you go.
Okay, the cost of keep. So Megan and Mabel have been on the job now for about a year. They're settling into their clerk's jobs. Go ahead.
I urge Megan to sign up for night classes in law and management at the local community college. Eventually, I'd like her to see her get her college degree.
Always the hard-charging brown noser. Megan works the day and takes classes at night. We've been friends since forever. I help her out by taking both of her kids and mine to after-school activities. I have to slip out of work early 3 days a week to get the kids to soccer and ballet, but I'm sure no one notices. Megan makes it up to me by paying for drinks at the weekly TGIF happy hour. I am grateful since Miles, the slacker husband, doesn't make much as an Uber driver. Plus, TGIF is the only time that I feel like I can really cut loose.
All right, a supervisor's job opens up. They both apply. And Megan is selected.
You know the feeling when nobody says anything to you, but you know that you got a courtesy interview?
First, I just want to say I deserved it. And I know, as a supervisor, I have to distance myself from my employees, including Mabel. The first thing I do is call a department meeting to let everyone know that I have to keep my professional distance. I used to be their coworker and friend, but you won't be seeing me at the TGIF happy hours anymore.
We're sure she got the supervisor job because of her spunk.
Being a supervisor is not what I expected. The other supervisors and managers are very competitive. They're fully willing to undercut each other to get ahead. Of course, my old coworkers are doing exactly what I told them to do, keeping their distance.
I don't talk to Megan anymore. However, our two families still get together on Saturdays for barbecues. Megan thinks this is okay because no one knows from work that or ever sees us together.
A lead worker's job opens up and Mabel applies.
We were all on the interview panel. Mabel does not interview well. She avoids making eye contact and kind of mumbles.
Yeah, and Mabel leaves work early a lot. A lot.
She also regularly cuts loose at TGIF, which impugns the dignity of the court.
What Mabel does at TGIF is on her own time. It is none of the court's business. She's a good employee and will make an excellent lead.
Losing our professional objectivity, are we? Are you sure you're ready to be a supervisor? I don't know if you're up for this. I might have to talk with HR. So we're agreed. Mabel is not our choice.
Megan, you're Mabel's supervisor. It's up to you to tell her.
First of all, I feel attacked. But I don't understand. You told me I would make an excellent lead clerk. I was practically a shoo-in. That pay bump was finally going to let my family make ends meet every month.
I am truly sorry, but the panel chose someone else.
Yeah. I'm sure you fought really hard for me. Look, at this Saturday's barbecue, we won't be coming over. Oh, and from now on, you can figure out some other way to get your bratty kids to soccer practice.
I think I've lost my best friend since grade school.
Sure did.
Damn straight. So we move on to the next scenario question. Should Megan have distanced herself from Mabel as soon as she became a supervisor? That she gave that speech, but to really mean that speech, because obviously Mabel thought that it wasn't really meant for her. So your options are, yes, supervisors must separate themselves from their employees in order to prevent conflict of interest. No, you don't need to lose all your friends just because you've become a supervisor. Ooh. I like this.
Wow.
Okay, can I borrow a...
Oh, this is really cool.
Thanks. All right.
You
Now,
know, quick
go ahead.
side note. I'm sorry. You know, Peter and I do a lot of these sessions, and one of the topics that we frequently deliver on is outside employment. And it's, you know, there's always a debate lately about, does the court own me after 5 o'clock? And we've been doing it for a number of years now, and there's a clear generational shift. I mean, when we first started doing this, there was a lot of debate about, yeah, what you do after hours really is a reflection on the court, and then the consensus was heavily in that direction. As time has gone by, you know, like in the generational shifts we talked about in the plenary yesterday, there's definitely a move in the other direction, that you don't own me after 5 o'clock. What I do in my own time is my own stuff. This to me is really cool, because if we had done this like 10 years ago, I'll bet you those bars would not look like that. But as time goes by, there seems to be a shift in attitude here, which is really cool to me, how relatively quickly you can see a shift in attitudes about workplace and our obligations. Yeah, Kevin.
Is this on? Yeah, this is on. Just slightly unrelated on this, so I don't mean to derail, but the Greek chorus, it occurred to me based on some of their reactions, whether they would have had the same reactions had Megan not been a woman. And I just feel like there's some perhaps subtext going on here for anyone who has seen.
Folks, let's run with that. Okay,
right.
Yeah.
For anyone who saw the wonderful Barbie movie this year, there's a great monologue in that about how women are put in this impossible position. And it's odd that I'm the one saying it as not being a woman.
Embrace the irony.
Yeah. So we'll just, and I'm not certainly trying to mansplain for those listening at home.
Oh, no.
But I feel like there may be more to that. And if the roles have been different, because there was a heavy implication that there might have been some impropriety going on between as to how Megan got the job. And I wonder if that is now going to carry forward unfairly to her for any other decision she makes. That's all.
Mm-hmm. Other comments? Yeah. Oh, you got it. Good
I
point.
think it depends on when Megan first got elected as a supervisor. Has she established the clear expectation with Mabel that just because we're friends, but now I'm in a different role, doesn't mean that we couldn't be friends anymore, but we do have to set some boundary between work and personal life. That clear expectation will help in this situation, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry about that, Kevin. Well, I think looked at it in the perspective of, had she compromised her friend in the beginning because it seemed like there was an inequality maybe between their experiences, that she used that in order to go further in her career because she wasn't taken off early to take her own kids. It seemed like Mabel was shoring that up, and she was going on ahead and positioning herself and taking advantage of some other opportunities. And I think that's
Megan
when
did not assertively stop that relationship. She did give the speech, and most of the employees responded to it. But yeah, that activity still occurred. Other thoughts? Go ahead. Can I sneak through here?
I'm just going to say that, maybe Mabel, instead of, I don't think she necessarily had to distance herself, but I don't know if she should have been her direct supervisor either if they had that relationship going into the courts.
Mm-hmm.
It makes you wonder if, and depending on the dynamics of their office, if there could have been maybe a better setup where someone else could have been more of the direct supervisor so they didn't have to worry about any sort of question of conflict in general.
Though let me ask a question about that. I mean, in your courts, how often do you move personnel around? If there's a need, there's a vacancy in Megan's department, and they're trying to fill that, then to create a second vacancy because we have to move Mabel somewhere else where maybe there isn't particularly a need. I mean, I'm going to confess, in my career, I don't think maybe once or twice I could think of folks who did courts that did that, but not very often.
Cheryl?
Sure. Is it not?
You could do it through normal attrition, though. I think, I have had friends, and then I've gone in and worked in a court, and we don't socialize outside of work. We don't, I don't Facebook with anybody I work with. I know I'm probably the minority, but there's a lot of things that come up in the human resources world, either from other staff or different areas that could influence an objective process in terms of dealing with that. The biggest mistake I think was that Mabel kept leaving work early to take her kids. I mean, that's the larger issue and then the staff are left thinking that she just is cutting out of work early, right? And nobody knows this relationship, so they don't know that it was on behalf of her boss, which is the problem.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh, Greg?
It's kind of funny because I can feel the pull to, with the 44 there, he said that you don't need to lose your friends. But then reality sets in and someone says something and you're a manager, you can't defend what's going on in front of you. So what are you going to do? Move them? Your office may not be in a position to move people around. Or you may just blow up another team just so you don't have this particular problem in your face. Or what do you have to monitor them to see if they're being too chummy at work, or sometimes decisions are going one person's way because they're friend. It gets very complicated. And my God, letting someone leave early, that's not even questionable. That's completely wrong. I mean, you're now stealing time, and if you're the manager letting that happen, you're stealing it too. So I know I get the pull of not wanting to lose friends, but the other hand, reality is the other way is a lot easier to manage and a lot cleaner.
Yeah. We often talk about, we work with and for judges all the time, and they always say the jobs are very isolating. They lose their attorney buddies, they lose their social circles, they become very, very isolated, and I sure understand and appreciate that. When we walk through a scenario like this, though, it becomes clearer, at least to me, that our jobs can be really isolating too. I mean, you can try to maintain those relationships, but boy, just as you say, that it kind of opens up a lot of difficulties.
Yeah.
Should I talk about, in this last scenario, I think the Greek chorus used a phrase, when Mabel was cutting loose at TJIF, that her behavior outside office hours impugns the dignity of the court. Now that's a phrase in the NACM ethics code, and it's a pretty commonly used phrase. Anybody here from Wisconsin? Do you remember the college president in La Crosse, what just happened? The chancellor of the college in La Crosse just resigned. I'm not, and this is not inside baseball. It's plastered over the media everywhere. He had adult internet activities going on outside his job, and he eventually, I can't remember, he was either asked to resign or he resigned voluntarily because of that activity, because it impugned the dignity of the institution. And so when we use that phrase, impugn the dignity, most people think, oh, what the heck does that mean? It still apparently got some meaning. It's a phrase that may be vague, maybe a little gray. We may struggle with that phrase, but it's still got some meaning. It's still got some effect and impact. Now, whether it's Outback or we're TJIF, when you have one staff person who gets a little wild at TGIF, I don't know if that in that scenario it impugns the dignity of the court. That might be a little bit of a stretch. But that phrase, I just wanted to spend a minute on that phrase because you see that phrase from time to time, and I think it's still got some effect.
I think we still got 3 minutes left before we have to move on to the third scenario. But
David?
Oh, David. Okay.
I think a lot depends on the size of your community and if you are known as someone who works for the court as well. If you have a very large community where someone goes out and has too much fun at TGI Fridays and no one knows they work for the court, that's a big difference than if you're a TCA or a chief in a small town and everyone knows that's where you work.
Yeah, I think David, I think you make a really good point because it's not only context dependent according to court size and jurisdiction, it's also context dependent, I think, on where you are in the org chart. The higher you go, the more cautious I think you generally have to be. And it also depends on the nature of your job, I think. You know, Peter and I watch ethics stuff and employees behaving badly all the time because we do this. There's, in addition to the college chancellor, there's also an example that some of you may remember of a middle school teacher who also had adult internet activities outside the classroom. And one of the rationales for the disposition of that situation was, well, you can't have the middle school kids, surfing and pulling up pictures of, yikes, Mrs. Smith from 8th grade. I mean, you can imagine what the difficulties and the issues that might arise from a situation like that. So yeah, it depends on size of jurisdiction. It's a complex thing. And that's why I think it's worthwhile for us to talk this through, because when these sorts of situations come up, we'll think, oh yeah, these are the considerations, context dependent, where you are in the org chart, how big your jurisdiction is, all kinds of things. It's a complex thing, but I think it's worthwhile to think through. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh,
Peter.
okay. Maybe we hit one question because I'm intrigued, particularly by what Greg said. For any of you who voted the one way, is there a way for Megan to maintain her friendship with Mabel? Or does she really have to lose that from the get-go? Many of you voted that you could do it. Anybody want to volunteer a suggestion on how Megan could have kept her friendship with Mabel?
I think this goes into two things. She could have kept her her relationship with Megan. Megan and Mabel could have kept their relationship if there was better communication as friends. And Cole is responsible too, because when Cole did not give Mabel the job, when he gave the job to Megan over Mabel, her interviewing skills probably was an issue then. And so had Cole said something to Mabel about that then, maybe that would have given her an opportunity to better interview, better up her skills. So then when this job came open, she could have gotten the job then. Mm-hmm. So I think this goes into Cole and Megan having that relationship, a better relationship, and communicating with Mabel. You need to up your interview skills. Let me help you, girl, while we're at the cookout. Let's go over some questions, that kind of thing like that. They could have maintained it better, but they just didn't take that opportunity because there's too much other stuff going on, animosity and stuff like that, I think.
Just out of curiosity, what would have happened if it got out that Megan was actually coaching Mabel for interview skills?
Well,
Yeah.
Well, yeah, absolutely, yeah. But she could have said to her, "Hey, go to a class or something." You know, I think she had that opportunity to give her a little nudge and saying, yeah, and that's why I said Cole. This goes back to Cole because Cole had an opportunity then to say something before this opportunity came up. So, and Cole has no dog in the fight because he's not going to the barbecue on Saturday. So, you know what I'm saying? So Cole could have said that to her initially. You didn't get this position because your interview skills are a little lacking. So maybe you need to go and get a class or do something. And then when it came down to Megan and that position, then she would have had those skills. So they both should throw Cole under the bus.
Mabel, are you comfortable with your very poor interview skills?
Well, yeah, because I feel like right now, everybody else but me's done something wrong, so I think it's great.
Now, I voted the other way. I voted for the A group, but playing devil's advocate, their relationship could have existed, but Megan would have to make it extremely clear to Mabel that she would almost have to be harder on her than the rest of the staff. So that way that level of impropriety is not even visible at all, right? So the relationship still could be there, but there can be not even a glimpse of favoritism. No going out to lunch together, no hanging out on breaks, smoking out back or whatever you guys do, not happening, right? So.
Okay. All right.
Boy, this is making me think that, Greg's point about, this is fraught with difficulty. Between high school and college, I worked for Daddy's company, and he wanted to avoid that favoritism, and so he always gave me the grossest jobs there were because he wanted to dispel just that. And, in retrospect, I'm thinking, okay, yeah, I'm impressed that he was so fair. But, boy, that's just what a rough... Exactly. Thank you. Yeah, I'm a perfect example.
So, okay. So we got till 3:45?
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Do we? Yes.
Does anybody? Yeah, okay. 2:40.
2:45.
We got till 3:40. Somebody did that in one of the other sessions.
Okay. I think we're still pretty good, Peter.
Okay.
All right. So another year passes. Megan is settling into her job, but she once in a while still gets into dangerous territory. On the other hand, she still tries to be highly motivated and engaged and wants to do creative, cutting-edge things. So, take it away, Megan.
I thought of a way to improve my standing with the other supervisors and managers. Taking my inspiration from Credell Webb, I volunteered to chair the court's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Review Committee. During a meeting, committee members argued that the court must address past wrongs.
Megan, 10 years ago, before you were even working here, Mr. Huntington used to tell inappropriate blonde jokes at the annual court Christmas party.
So, we all think, since you are chair, you need to ask Mr. Huntington to publicly apologize for his inappropriate jokes. He can warn staff that such behavior will not be tolerated in the future.
Why did I sign up for this? Okay. Mr. Huntington, thanks for meeting with me. We on the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee see an issue that needs to be addressed. You apparently used to tell blonde jokes at the annual Christmas party?
Wait. Whoa. I don't see any benefit in discussing a few harmless jokes told many years ago. You didn't even work here then. It was back when we still called the holiday party a Christmas party. And we served alcohol. I didn't form the DEI committee for you to all go on witch hunts after specific employees. Least of all me.
I understand that, but Mr. Huntington, you're in a unique leadership position. You will make a lasting impression on staff by publicly apologizing. You can warn staff that such behavior will not be tolerated moving forward. Even now, some staff repeat those blonde jokes. They say it's okay because they learned them from you, the boss.
You do realize how humiliating this would be for me personally. I apologize in front of the entire court, including the bench, for actions over a decade ago. It also opens up the court for potential legal liability. I want to think long and hard about your request. I really want, yeah.
Hey, how's old Spunky doing now?
It's Cole's fault again.
I want to personally thank the management crew for their support of Megan. Should Cole Huntington publicly apologize for telling blonde jokes 10 years ago? Yes, it would show that the court is serious about not tolerating inappropriate behavior. No, it needs to look to the future and not dredge up the past.
C tells more jokes.
Thanks.
Wow. Wow.
Okay.
Huh.
Mm-hmm.
Huh. I didn't think it would be so
one-sided.
Right. Yeah. For those in the majority, letting Cole off the hook, what's the rationale? Is it the length of time? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Do we have a mic, Peter?
For me, oh, hello. Oh, for me, it's that the point of an apology, in my humble opinion, is more so a word. It's more a sentiment, it's to change your behavior. So if 10 years has gone by and he's not done it in 10 years, it kind of, to me, defeats the purpose of apology. To me, that comes off more like,
Are you kidding me? I don't want this to affect your support for us, and I want you to still give us 5 stars. Oh my God. This is hilarious.
I'm scared.
Okay, folks, you are real true warriors. You know that? I've been with some folks that would be down at the bar now, right?
Yeah.
But you're with, I mean, the state bar, right? For lawyers. But,
oh, yeah. Yeah.
But we're really glad you're back. And we do have, I think, about, maybe, 13 minutes. So let's go back to work here. I leave it in your very capable hands,
Thank
folks.
you. Let me finish this one off because we were talking about letting Cole off the hook because it's length of time.
Oh, Oh no!
And
I was saying,
and he's not doing it anymore.
Well, I feel like it would come off. What's the word? Not performative, or like just an empty. Forced, empty gesture. Like it's not. He doesn't mean it. If he's forced to do it. And again, I find when people apologize, it should be done with behavior, not just words. So I feel like if he's already corrected his behavior and it's already been done, why would he need to apologize?
Would you have that same opinion if he had been telling ethnic jokes?
Yes.
Would you have that same opinion if he were 10 years ago, he made comments about personal appearance?
I just feel compelled to. Yes. I don't know.
Well, Jared's got a comment, or? Oh, okay.
For me, I think there is a way to address past behavior without a forced apology. I don't think it's letting him off the hook. I think it's, what am I trying to accomplish? And does that apology accomplish that goal?
Okay, and for those who are in the group of 15, what's the objective? In other words, what if he were compelled to apologize? What's the objective? What's the outcome you'd want to see? Why?
Well, so I'm going with the lady in the pink that it doesn't need to be an apology, but the concern is she mentioned that employees are now repeating the joke. So I think the way to approach it is to, I don't know, it's been brought to my attention that we're having some jokes that affect some people, that along that line. And within that, he can say, I want to, let you all know I've had some experience with this, but I've made these changes. So it's not that you're saying, oh, I'm so sorry, and now you got to explain something and dig up old dirt, but you are correcting behavior that could be happening right now. So you are addressing present behaviors, and you're also showing a level of, you're not apologizing, but you're showing that you've corrected behavior and you understand yourself that it's an issue. For those who believe that, oh, you still think that way, even though they haven't seen you display the behavior, you're letting them know, no, I do not. So I think that's the best way to handle it, instead of just apologizing. You want to correct the current behavior that's actually happening.
Yeah, I agree with what everyone else has said on this. I think that if he were to apologize now, it would feel like, like celebrities do this when they get caught doing something stupid. I'm sorry, sorry I offended anyone, and now I'm going to rehab, and it's just total performative nonsense. And
Off
so
to Betty Ford.
Yeah. So and I agree, and I really like what you just said about here's explaining here's what is acceptable, and if someone calls him out, and then it's like, yeah, it was inappropriate then, and that shouldn't have happened. The other thought I had, which was more of a joke, was that I think Megan should dye her hair blonde. And then she should come into the office to see if he'll say anything. And when he does, she should try to get his job. Because that's real spunk.
So, I saw their comments back here. Sure.
I think some of your questions kind of pushing the envelope of, well, what if it was this topic? What if it was this topic? But I think the thing that, and this really validates to me a lot of the comments that were made, is kind of what's the intention, because, and this is of course how it was set up, but the intention was really, number one, somebody working to ingratiate themselves to others, being on this committee, and then other people who are motivated by a got you. And so focusing on the behavior and improvement, as opposed to, oh, now somebody said something about bald men. Now somebody said something about Karens. Now somebody said something about then you are creating this got you mentality that is not creating good office morale either, I think. So making it about the purposeful moving forward to me, is the most logical thing.
I have a little different perspective. We've experienced something similar in our court. I think it depends on some of the tenure of your employees too. If you think about trying to create a safe space where they can come and share concerns about comments that are made, presently, if there was behavior, if you have a history of not addressing that behavior, you haven't created a place where they can come forward and talk to you about that. So maybe it's in how it's handled. Maybe you're not having to, maybe it's more of a cozy room kind of thing and you're talking with people. But at some point, you have to acknowledge that past behavior was not acceptable. And going forward, our behavior will be this. And then build on the trust to be able to create a space for people to come forward and talk about their experiences or share them, and about how to be constructive around them.
Are you at all inclined to cut Cole a little slack, because quite simply sensibilities change?
No, I don't. I guess it depends on the context, because if you have a group of employees that have been there 25 years, and I'll just use our own court as an example. We had an individual who had been there a long period of time that was making inappropriate comments, and eventually over time, way before I got there, right, people stopped even mentioning it. But when this person retired, hardly anybody showed up to their retirement party, and so then I started asking why, and I heard all of these stories, but there hadn't been a culture where anybody could tell those, or anybody could go to somebody to talk about those. So in that instance, I think, if it was that kind of individual, I think there is something to be said for your culture and for building the trust to have a conversation around it and moving forward.
I think the other thing too is knowing who is in your workplace. This is Courtney, not Mabel, but you would have to work really hard to offend me, but someone else may be far more sensitive to other things. So I guess on one hand, being aware of that, but there is a specific work expectation, I suppose. But I think it would vary too, especially in today's world.
Peter,
go ahead.
I want to preface this with, I think it's getting a lot better at the court that I joined a year ago. But one of the saddest things I heard was less than a month in, I heard from another supervisor that a judge said a racist comment to them. And I was up in arms about it because where I came from, that was an issue. And I may have gotten myself fired had I not given myself a couple days to respond. But the comment when I was talking to the person was, this is just the way it is. And so if we don't address it, then it just becomes, this is just the way it is. And people don't talk up. And then it becomes just a purveying thing that just continues to happen. I think even if it's not out there, it's part of the culture. It's what
Always
everyone
below
feels.
the surface. Yeah.
So I don't know if it's the lawyer in me, but I think, it depends is what all my answers are here is it depends. But I think creating a culture of psychological safety and creating that culture where people can come forward, you have to have the other side of that too, which is I can't be judged by who I was a decade ago. Like you have to make room for the possibility that people grow and they learn and they change. And if I have to carry around a mistake for a decade, like an anchor, then that's pretty toxic too. So it's something that we work at in our organization. I don't want to judge you by who you are, who you were 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. I want to judge you by the person you are standing in front of me now and the work and the behavior that I see today. So I think that culture you have to have both of those things.
Oh, cool.
Oh, go ahead.
It's all about time, culture, norms, and awareness, right? That's how I see it. I think they can put a spin on this where Cole could use this opportunity to be vulnerable, right? And that's where because this committee was his idea, correct?
Yeah.
So he uses this as a time to be vulnerable, right? In a way to put a twist where he can earn their trust, right? And now you build a new norm, a new culture, and a new sense of awareness moving forward.
Okay. Got time for one more comment, and I think we're going to have to wrap it up.
So I'll be transparent with you all. I'm an 80s baby, 1986. And I remember when I was in about 5th grade, this is back when, you could still do scholastic book orders. And there was this book, I'll never forget, called Yo Mama Jokes when I was in 5th grade. And the whole bus, we all ordered them. And we were in the bus going home saying the Obama jokes to everybody. And it was arranged by categories, like your mom's so fat, whatever. And we were just cracking up. These days, that would never happen. But I would never be to be asked to apologize for what I did reading that book when it was okay in that time. I just feel it would be interesting. But I know now through maturity that you can't do that going forward. But something like what he was saying, like racism, I don't know if that's ever been okay. So it's not like that's something that, I was racist 10 years ago and now. So I think it's just different than like a joke than something that was allowed or, just tolerated or normal compared to like a character flaw like racism or something like that.
My 11-year-old son still found the Yo Mama jokes on the net.
So, okay, 2 minutes. All right, we'll wrap it up real fast. Thank you. Why we do this? Because it is the integrity of the court system that is at stake. So we have to look at these things. It's more than just following the personnel rules. And frankly, both Carl and I believe that there are no absolutely right or wrong answers here. It's our job to promote ethics, integrity, as well as the trust and confidence in the courts. And there's 2 quotes that I like to always give at the end. One, by Thomas Friedman, ethics are not laws. They are imposed They are not imposed by the state. Rather, they are norms, values, beliefs, habits, and attitudes that are embraced voluntarily, that we as a society impose on ourselves. Laws regulate behavior from the outside. Ethics regulates behavior from the inside. Ethics are something that you carry with you wherever you go and use you as a guide for whatever you do. And then secondly, why we don't give you the right answer, because for every problem, there's always a solution that is simple, neat, and wrong. So, last thoughts, Carl?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks. And thanks very much to the actors.
Well, I just want to thank you folks for being so attentive. Just terrific discussion, honestly. And we do have you on tape, okay? So it's really thoughtful here. And I guess, what can I say? You have caused us to think, Carl, Peter, and our team, the actors. What do you think? So one more round of applause.